Having a blast, gonna get it on the Bruce Lee podcast. Bruce Lee like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard on the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely. If you want my respect, you better put direct. Here are the words in the podcast, that's what comes next.
So hi Mark, thanks for joining me on my What's Key with Sarah G podcast. Thank you ever so much for being on.
I am so excited. You don't even realize I've binged season 1 and I am so looking forward to it. So thank you for having me. What's Key with Sarah G? I love that name, by the way.
Awesome. Oh, thanks. Well, that's what it's all about. It's all about people like you, entrepreneurs, about property, business and mindset. And I thought it'd be great to have someone like yourself on. I think you've made loads of waves. I've been following you for sort of the past year or so. And this year, I feel like for a service accommodation operator, entrepreneur, and business owner like myself, I feel like you make a lot of major good points. There's massive sort of key factors in there, so I thought it'd be really good to have you on, not even as someone listening now as a hospitality owner, but maybe someone that's also a business owner or maybe wants to get into the hospitality, rent to rent or service accommodation business as well, because obviously, as you know, things have kind of gone to pot in a way, but also changed, or we have to adapt as well as business owners. So I thought it'd be great to have someone like yourself on, a marketing genius, Mark Simpson. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for that lovely intro. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit, people that don't know who you are, Mark, just tell us a little bit about you, where you're based, your family life, and just a little bit about you, your background.
So I'm speaking to you right now from a little town called Javier, which is in Alicante, Spain. So we're an hour north of Alicante, 30 minutes north of Benidorm, everyone knows where that is, and then an hour south of Valencia. And the reason why we live here is that there's only 40 days of rain in a year, which is a big sense for us, because I come from Scarborough. I'm a Yorkshire boy originally, and it probably rains there 320 days in a year. So I'm very, very fortunate that over the last 4 years, I've been able to build Boostly. And Boostly, in short, is short for Boost Hospitality. It was my wife, Laura, that I know that you chat to. She came up with the name. And basically what I do is I give the tools, the tactics, the training, and the confidence to hosts to go and get more direct bookings. So for anybody who doesn't know what a direct booking means, when you book a property, a stay, whether it's for business or leisure, and you go via booking.com or Airbnb or Expedia, hotels.com, Verbo, wherever it is, when you do that, they charge big commission rates to the property owner or the host or the manager or whatever. So what I do is I show them how not to rely on these channels and how you can get your own bookings, whether it's via social media, email marketing, your website, Google, you name it. And all I'm simply doing is showing what I did for my family business, which is called the Granary Farm Stay, which is based in Scarborough, which is where I grew up. So in the 90s, my parents had a 5th generation farm. It was 200 acres in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors. It was in between Scarborough and Whitby. And this was when, funny enough, another pandemic was hitting. It was the foot and mouth crisis. And farms all over the UK were having to kill off livestock, and just businesses were getting ruined. And they had an amazing foresight to transform this farm and knock down a barn and turn it into a 4-bedroom guest house. And this was really before any of the other farms were doing this. Farm Stay now is very, very popular. There's an organization, a magazine, Farm Stay and whatnot. And I grew up, I'm 5 or 6 at the time. So I grew up in hospitality. I'm just used to always having somebody at our house growing up. If there was always somebody in the kitchen, and it's a weird world, is that you literally invite strangers to come and stay with you, whether it's for a day, 2 days, a week or whatever. And over time that got really popular. So it grew from 4 beds to 14 beds. They added on tea rooms, a restaurant, and it was really popular. And I did what any other person my age in Scarborough was doing. I was growing up and I wanted to leave because it's in the middle of nowhere. One road in, one road out. And but at the same time, I was working in the business. I was seeing how it was growing, and I was doing the tea rooms, waiting on, changing beds, all the things. But at 20, I had an opportunity to go and coach soccer in America. So for 6 years, 7 years, I went to nearly every state in America. I got my visa. I think it was my H1 visa. So you spend 5 months there, came back to England for 7 months, and it was amazing. But that's where I got the travel bug. And then in 2006, me and my buddy, we went traveling around Asia and Australasia. We went back to America. We jumped on a one-way ticket to Bangkok, and we were basically away for 2 years. But again, even no traveling, backpacking in Australia, I was ending up in bars and whatnot. And eventually, to cut a long story short, 2009, ended up back in London. I fell into working at Quaip, which then turned into Yelp. Everybody knows Yelp, big review site. And I was doing their sales, trying to sell listings to businesses. But at that time is when I started to learn about social media, about Google. I was in the marketing team more than the sales team. I was like geeking out on what they were doing, and I got just infatuated with this thing called marketing. And then in 2012, December 2012, so 12, my first child was born, Alfie, who's now 7. He was born, and we had an opportunity. My parents gave me an opportunity, me and my wife and Alfie, to come into the family business, because I'm one of 4. And I'm the eldest of 4. And they asked if we wanted to come in, because at that point the business was 25 years old and they needed some young blood. They needed somebody to help them get online, because they had just relied on word of mouth. And we said yes. And my job was to do the marketing. And I loved it. I was setting up Facebook pages. I was doing websites, doing the Google. We're getting listed on all these channels, Booking.com, Airbnb, and just doing all of the things, TripAdvisor. And I literally applied those tactics and trainings into the granary. And from 2012 to 2016, it just grew. The offline word of mouth went online, and it just exploded. We were going viral. We had super fans. We built an online brand. We were top 3 ranked on TripAdvisor in the area. Our Facebook page grew to the most followed local independent business, which was insane. And we're just a tiny little farm in the middle of nowhere, and we did this. And
amazing.
It was crazy. And then in 2016, I started going to local hospitality association meetings. It's the SHA. And it was at here that I just sat at the back of the room. I didn't really know anybody. They were just all chatting and moaning and complaining about Booking.com and other things. And it was at here I realized that, and it's really easy as a business owner to get stuck inside the bottle, to try and just sort of, it's really hard to sort of zoom out on your business and realize what you're doing isn't what others are doing. It's easy to think that what you're doing, everybody knows. And I could see that people were struggling with Facebook. I could see that people were struggling with Twitter at the time, or YouTube and Google and Google business listing and websites and all of the things. And I just put my hand up and said, if I do a workshop at the granary after we've finished a restaurant one night, just showing you 5 ways that you can increase your direct bookings, would that benefit you? And out of 100 people there, 5 people put their hand up. The first 5 people I bought. And on the back of that, I created the Hospitality Community Facebook group. And it grew from 5 people to now it's over 5,000 members. It's a worldwide group. We've got people in nearly every country and continent in the world, which is insane. And on the back of creating a hospitality community, so many people were starting to ask the same questions. And I just kept showing up every day. So 2016, 2017, I just showed up every day and answered all these questions. And at the time I had one-on-one clients in Scarborough that I started working with. And I realized that there was an amazing opportunity here to go pivot from one-on-one business to a one-to-many. And that was the start of Boostly, really. That was the start of Boostly. And I created an online training course. I created a podcast. I created a YouTube channel. I did all of the things, and I just took it from a one-on-one model to one-to-many, and created website design. And then that gave us the opportunity to start traveling again. We came out of the family business. We jumped on planes. We flew to Bali, Bulgaria, Thailand, Cambodia, everywhere. And now we're in Spain. And we've been here for a couple of years. And now Boostly's got over 1,000 clients. We do website design. We do content creation, online training. And it's insane. Now I'm talking to you.
What a story. Yeah, that's amazing to hear it. That's why I love to have guest speakers on, just because their story is completely different. And it's just so interesting, because I think listeners, they can just take in that. I think when they see a business thriving at that time, they don't realise how much experience, how much work, how much sort of blood, sweat and tears is put into it, and that things don't go to plan, and that things come up, and you grab an opportunity when you can, and then sometimes things also just fall into place, but it's also that work behind it. And that's why probably your parents, I'm guessing, they wanted your help, they needed your help. They said, look, you've got all this experience. Is that how it sort of come across? And that's why they said, could you help us, Mark, and grow it? Or did they want to go sort of more into retirement? Or how did you end up sort of taking it on?
Well, it was definitely, it was just an opportunity, some of it you don't plan for. At that time when they asked the question, we were living in Darlington. We had bought a house in Darlington, and I was working from home for an events company selling events. So when the question came up, it was something that we hadn't planned for, but it was just that opportunity was amazing to Alfie to grow up on the farm. I mean, the cool thing about the business is that we worked really, really hard for 10 months and then you get 2 months off. So we would still be able to travel in those 2 months, which we did. And we got married on the farm, and it was just a fantastic opportunity for us. And then for them, they got one of their children in on the business. They knew it wasn't going to be forever. They knew we weren't going to take it over forever. It was the plan was to get in, grow it, increase the profile, increase the revenue, so then eventually they could sell it. And it was really successful. We added on holiday cottages, and we added even more things, and we definitely increased the value. So then when it went up for sale in 2017, 2018, it was at its peak value, because we had added so much to it. There was a wedding venue and all of the things. So they needed one of us to come in. The problem is that my brother, the second oldest, me, 2 years younger than me, he was working in London doing PPE, helping people get PPE back, working for the Lloyd Bank, I think it was. My sister, she's a teacher, had no interest coming into it. And then my youngest brother, he's 12 years younger than me, so he was at university at the time. And so it just made sense for us to do it. And I mean, it's great. If we hadn't have accepted it, if we hadn't have said yes, then who knows where we would have been. But so thankful for it. It was a lot of hard work. I mean, it's one of them where me and Laura were like ships in the night. We're doing different shifts. Like, you get up at 6, you get all the bills, you do the emails, you then set up for breakfast, you come back, you get the boys up, you feed them their breakfast. One of us would take them off to nursery, and then you do change the bedrooms, you do the bills again, you and set up the tea rooms. You do the tea rooms, which finishes at 4. You quick change around, get the boys from school, get them fed, and then one of us will put them to bed. The other one's working the evening meal. And that's pretty much 7 days a week. Yeah. And it was a lot, but we worked hard for 10 months. We got those 2 months off, and it was really good experience, because again, if we hadn't have done that, then we wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah. Exactly. And what made you mentioned earlier about going to like a networking event, like a local event? What made you go to that in the first place?
Well, in 2016, I'm a big Liverpool fan,
oh dear.
And I know you're Manchester United, aren't you?
No, I'm Arsenal all the way. We're all Londoners, so.
Okay, so 2016, I went to Liverpool to go to Anfield, and I was sat in the pub afterwards with a buddy, and he's kind of an entrepreneurial business owner and whatnot. And he mentioned to me, have I ever heard of a guy called Tim Ferriss? And I was like, nah, I've never heard of a guy called Tim Ferriss. And he said, oh, you're going to love him. So I downloaded his podcast on the train back, and it was the episode with Jamie Foxx. It's probably like his biggest ever episode that he's ever done. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And I figured he had a book, and I got the 4-hour work week and all of the things. And it was thanks to that book that I learned about outsourcing, about hiring other people. And I started to put it into with what I was doing at the granary, so I didn't have to work all the hours and I could spend time with the family. So I discovered this thing called Upwork, And I was able to hire a virtual assistant, a virtual team member. And I was able to give her so many tasks that I shouldn't have been doing. And it was awesome. I was basically able to sack myself from the business. And I free up all of this time that meant that I could go to these meetings. And I always got invited, but I could never, ever go to them. But because I was able to do all these things and free up time, and I was able to do all of the things, then I went one evening. And it wasn't just the one. We went to a few. It was part of the hospitality association. You got to go on days out and things like that. And it was good. It was a good chance to sort of meet other owners. But the more that I went, and I think the first ever meeting I went to was like an AGM where we were chatting about things. And I just sort of realized that this is an opportunity to help. And then it was born out of frustration, really, because I was really annoyed at the local tourism, Welcome to Yorkshire, that they weren't doing more help online. It was all offline. You had to go to these meetings. But I was like, well, what happens if you get a troublesome guest? What happens if somebody calls up and asks for availability and you've not got any? You could go jump onto this online Facebook group. And I said, there's these things called Facebook groups. And this is before Facebook groups were really popular. And they just looked at me like stonewall, like, what are you talking about? And I thought, well, sod it. If you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I created a hospitality community. It was just for Scarborough and Whitby at the time. Again, to sort of give advice, share availability, warn of troublesome guests, whatever. And I set it up and I just showed up every single day. And at the first, I posted something up and it got no engagement. Nobody liked it. But over time, the more I showed up, and I showed up every single day, people started to comment and like and ask questions. And then again, it got really popular. So then they started telling people in York and in Edinburgh, and it just sort of started to spread. And then other people started to join, and other people started to join. And then before I knew it, we got to, 1,000 members, and we had people from France and Germany, and then Bali and Australia, and everybody started joining. And it was crazy. So it's that by literally deciding to go to that meeting was definitely the catalyst for everything.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think as sort of, entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and business owners, it can be quite a lonely place. It can be quite a lonely experience. You do feel like you're the only one sometimes doing it out of your sort of group. And I think Facebook groups can be such a great tool, not only just for basic advice, like you say, but also just to get so much more tips and hints and tricks, and just network with people that you will probably never come across maybe face to face. And obviously a lot now being, during a pandemic and lockdown, it's all virtual, isn't it? Like we are now. So I think Facebook groups are a great thing. And like you said, back then, it wasn't really as popular. And even when you used to Google something, probably a Facebook group or even Facebook probably didn't even come up. So whereas now it probably would, and your group would come up. So
no, you're right, definitely. And that's how I got into like entrepreneurial Facebook groups, not mine. It's like when I was looking for like guidance when I first started, Tim Ferriss was fantastic, but he wasn't really anywhere online. He just sort of did his podcast himself, but he wasn't showing up anywhere. And then I sort of fell into like the likes of Pat Flynn and Noah Kagan and all these people. But the problem was that they were talking like Ramit Sethi and Jay Abraham. They're all talking like really about American stuff. And I was like, well, I'm in England. I need somebody more closer. So that's where I discovered Coffee with Dan Meredith, and his Facebook group, and then his paid group, which is Espresso with Dan. And that was one of the best things that I discovered back in 2016, 2017, because that was a place that I could go in and ask a question, whether it was social media advice, something that I could pass on to my community, or whether it's, starting up a business, tax questions, you name it. And the answers that you were getting in there are just phenomenal, because my friend group, my like offline friends, like I've known them since I was 3 and 4 years old. Like all 3 of them were like best men at my wedding, and they've got no real business bones in their body. They don't care about that. I couldn't ask them those questions because, again, they'd look at me with the stonewall expression. Yeah. Our WhatsApp group, it's just memes and just talking about football. It's not that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I needed that group to help me 100%. And it was I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that group, because the people that I've met in there, and a lot of them I've never really met face to face. I've met a lot face to face, but a lot of them it's just been through chatting and whatnot. But again, I've been able to work with them I've hired them or they've hired me or whatever. We've just worked together on something, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, and a lot of entrepreneurs and listeners at the moment that are listening to this have either just started their journey or want to start their journey into business or / hospitality. So what advice do you think you would give to a listener right now if they want to start their own Facebook group or they want to start their own business? Because you've obviously had a lot of experience. I know that's quite a broad question, but you've had a lot of experience, obviously, and then you started sort of your Facebook group and you started quite niche in your area and built it up from there. So is there any sort of little tips or maybe advice you could give some listeners now?
Well, there's two answers to the question. It's a great question. Well, the first one is just get shit done. Just get it done. Don't procrastinate. Just 80, as Mark Zuckerberg said this, and I think it's on the walls of Facebook, 80% of something done is better than perfect. So just get it done. That's the first thing. If you've got an idea, just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And then the second thing is that when you're starting out, and when you want to get going, then I think that it's really key and crucial that you, number one, you look to outsource as soon as possible. Don't do all the things yourself. That's super key. So there's amazing websites, Upwork.com, Fiverr.com. These are you can find people online anywhere in the world that are trained and skilled with all the tasks. So again, don't try and do it all yourself. Make sure that you, as soon as possible as well. I mean, I was earning Boostly was bringing in less than £1,000 a month, and I was still outsourcing. I was still hiring at that point. A lot of people think that they have to get super successful, they have to be bringing in X amount of money before they can then outsource. You can lose and bring back as much money as possible. The one thing you can't get back is time. It's not possible. We don't know time travel yet. It's not been done. So, really, really crucial from the start is to look to outsource, and look to find the tasks that you shouldn't be doing, don't like doing, and look to outsource it as soon as possible. So the first recommendation, just get it done, just do it. And then the second thing is look to outsource. And I'm sure there's a second part to your question, but I can't remember what that was.
No, that's fine, because I was just going to add there that, I think a lot of us want to be doing, or we try and do everything at once, or we try and be perfect and everything, and it has to be spot on before you even launch, when actually you've probably wasted a shitload of time, load of money, and you haven't even got off the mark yet, and then you're just going to present it to someone and you're going to expect people to buy, and I think a lot of people realize that's not going to happen. People buy people. It takes time, it takes rapport. I think you've got to give a lot before you can get. And I think you made a really good point there, that you just outsourced rather than trying to be a jack of all trades and try and do everything. And that even though you weren't earning top dollar, or maybe for what you wanted to be earning, you still went out there and thought, I still need help, and it's worth investing in now, because I can then concentrate more on other things in my business.
I remember what the other answer was going to be. Sorry to interrupt. And I literally, it's just on top of my mind. So
go for it.
When I came up with the idea of Boostly, I could have just said that I was a marketing agency. But the trick is to niche on your niche, as I call it. So find a niche and then delve down into that niche even more. So I could have just said I was a marketing agency. But what I went from there, I went down further, is that I work with hospitality businesses. So again, I hospitality marketing agency, as I like to call it. But then I've niched down even further. So I've really delved down on the niche. So the people that I'm going to serve, and I'm the direct bookings guy. I show people how to get their own direct bookings, hospitality businesses, so they don't have to rely on Booking.com, Airbnb, etc. So you find your niche. If you're thinking of starting out, don't just call yourself a website designer. Find a niche that you can specialize in, that you can speak to directly, because the problem is that we try and appeal to everybody. And when you appeal to everybody, you appeal to nobody. So really delve down on your niche, figure out who you're going to serve, and then some really good books that I can recommend. So Superfans by Pat Flynn. Story Brand by Donald Miller. You can get them on Audible. I've just audibled them a couple of hours, which is fantastic. Those are two really good books to get started on, because superfans will show you how to create superfans. You know, like your core group of people that follow you, that will follow you online, will buy your product, will talk about you. And then Story Brand is how to get your message across. And those two books, you can get them on Audible. I think they're doing like free trials at the moment, so you can get them for free. And then a blog to read, and I've just revisited it. It's 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. If you have got the Tools of Titan book by Tim Ferriss, you know there's a section on it in there, but you can just Google it. 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. It's a phenomenal book about, again, how to build those super fans. And that's what I did. That's what I read and studied when I first got started. Coupled that with the Facebook groups that I was a part of. And I think my key to getting so much done is that we can really easily study. You can go from course to course, the next YouTube video to the next YouTube video. But if you just study and you don't actually practice what you're learning, then you're literally just learning stuff for learning stuff's sake. What I've done is, doesn't matter if I'm listening to a podcast, I check out a Blinkist book or an Audible, I always find that take that 10%, that one thing that I can action now, and I go and do it. So like for you listening, even if the one thing is that you go and buy Story Brand by Donald Miller, then that's something that you've done something. You're not just going to listen to this podcast and go, yeah, that was great. He was a funny guy with a weird hat. Let's go on to the next podcast in my list. You know what I mean? You actually do something, and that is the trick. And go back to that Mark Zuckerberg quote: 80% done is better than something that's perfect. Just go and create a group, go and do that thing, put a message out to 3 people of an idea you've had, and see if they like the idea of it. You can chat to your friends about it and just message 3 people on Facebook right now. It's super simple to do. The problem is that people don't do it because they think, I have to get it perfect. I have to get that perfect recording of a podcast. I have to have a perfect course. I have to have a perfect X, Y, and Z before I launch it. And procrastination is the killer of all businesses. So.
Yeah, it's like the fear of the unknown, isn't it? And like you say, 80% of something is definitely better than 100% of nothing. That is for sure, as we've learned as well over time. And you said about sort of Boostly, so tell us a little bit about people that don't know about Boostly. I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and obviously it's grown a lot and sort of more for hospitality owners and direct bookings. And I think this year, or even last year really, but especially this year with a pandemic and a lockdown, and they shut all the calendars in Airbnb. So everyone that knows sort of online travel agents like Airbnb, booking.com, they are great tools to have, but you can't just rely on them, obviously, because at the end of the day, someone else obviously owns them and they have to follow our UK government guidelines and the rest of the world. And a lot of them got shut, as you know, and they aren't right now while we're recording this.
Yeah.
So we needed someone like yourself, Mark, that's obviously a big expert in this field and getting direct bookings. And that's what you've been sort of shouting about, raving about online this year, and trying to help hospitality owners like myself. So explain a little bit about that. And I'm sure loads of listeners will definitely appreciate it and get a lot of tips from it as well, and how you can help them.
Yeah, 100%. So I've been talking about direct booking since 2016. I think that the reason why people now are calling me the direct booking guy is that since 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, nobody cared because there wasn't a pandemic. There's never been a COVID before. And a problem that I have with a lot of property courses that are out there that happen over a weekend or whatnot is that they show you how to get started. They show you how to approach an estate agent. Excuse me. I've been doing a lot of talking today. They show you how to approach an estate agent. They show you how to get the keys. They show you all these things. But when it comes to marketing, it's like the last thing that they show. And they just say, just get on booking.com and Airbnb and you'll be fine. And if you think about our industry, it's true. We are very fortunate. I can't think of any other career or industry out there that you can list your business on and you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to get income coming in. You can't, if you're in e-commerce, you can list on Amazon. You can't pretty much guarantee that you're going to get bookings. We're in hospitality. Hospitality is there's not enough properties. You can get to a point, and you can get to a certain point in a calendar, whether there's an event on or whatever, you've literally got people that are fully booked. The whole town or city is sold out. You know what I mean? So we're in a very, very fortunate position in that way. But the problem is that if you just put it to the side and you start up a business and you go, you know what, I'll just put it on booking.com and Airbnb. I don't need to bother with anything else. I'll just put all of my eggs in that basket. You're building your house on someone else's land. And when you build your house on someone else's land, it's going to fuck up. Whether you like it or not, it's just going to happen. And I've been talking about this since 2016. And I didn't think in 2020 there was going to be a global pandemic where the whole world would just stop for this to come true. My ramblings of a madman will come true, but it has. And, I am not anti-OTA. I listed my family business on the OTAs. I'm a preacher of you've got to make them work for you and not the other way around. The problem is that when you put all of your eggs in one basket, and I speak to people that 95% of all of their bookings, including repeat guests, are coming through Airbnb or booking.com. The problem is that in March, and it was middle of March the 23rd, what they did, Airbnb, and everybody will remember this. If you are watching or listening to this and you've got property and you've listed on Airbnb, you will all remember this day because you woke up to a notification on your phone from Airbnb. They sent it to everybody saying you can cancel your stay free of charge. Doesn't matter what the policy is, you will get all your money back. Now, obviously, they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They had guests on here, they had hosts on here, and they had this big little elephant in the room called the IPO that they've got coming up, right? And they didn't know what to do, and so they panicked, and they've admitted they've made mistakes. I've listened to podcast episodes and interviews with the founders of Airbnb, and they've realized that they made a mistake because they didn't consult with us, they didn't give us warning, they just said, nah, screw you, don't care what your policies was. And I know people that lost thousands upon thousands of income. And, like I said, I flew into England on the 11th of March for the short stay show, which was in London at the XL, and for the Shorties Awards, because I won the best use of social media. I was speaking on the 12th of March at the Sorted Stay show, and it was coming out of the XL Centre at 5 p.m. I was walking with a couple of people that I knew from the world of property and service accommodation, and we were just being frog marched out of the XL. And we didn't really know what was going on at the time. Turns out that the XL then got turned into one of the emergency hospitals that they needed in London and all of those things. But as walking out, and obviously coronavirus is there, and you know that it's obviously in China and whatnot, was hitting Italy at the time, and Spain where I live. And I said to somebody, there's going to be one phrase that's going to be bandied around when all of this gets back to normal, and it's going to be staycation. You're just going to hear tourism boards and everybody's like, if you said staycation in March, if you type staycation in March on a Google search, next to no results or clicks on it. You do it now and it's everywhere, because what's happened is that international travel's just gone. And so, but the thing about hospitality, the thing about the career that we are in, what we do is we provide experiences. People love to have something to look forward to. And, just flash back to June, the month before lockdown was dropped in the UK, and you've been stuck in your house for all of these weeks and months. And if you're in a city and if you're in an apartment and you've got kids that are running around that are just literally doing your heads, and you're just giving them the tablets just to say, just give me a bit of peace and quiet. You know what I mean? You've done all the online teaching and stuff. You've got to have something to look forward to. And what do you want to do? You want to escape, which is why in July and in August, one of the main things that bounced back the fastest and the hardest was rural properties in UK, USA, wherever, that's out the way, private accommodation, so you don't have to share with anybody. You can just get away and just switch off. And so many people, it's why campsites have just been rammed, because again, it's getting out into the countryside, and it's a staycation, and it's been a massive contributor to the fact. Now, the problem is, again, going back to Airbnb and booking.com, like you said, not only did they refund guests, but then they closed off calendars. They bemoan the fact that so many people could still home key workers, so they could still host key workers. There's very clear guidelines of who you can and cannot host. So you couldn't have any business, you couldn't have any leisure back in March, April, May, June, but you could get key workers. So we were stuck in Gatwick Airport on the 16th of March. Me, my wife, my 3 children, and we were texting friends back in Spain. Our flight was meant to leave at 6 p.m. Our EasyJet flight back into Alicante. They were locked down in hard and locked down in fast. We didn't know if we could get back into the country because we didn't have our residency details with us. So we had 2 choices. We either get on that plane and we just chance it, or we get in a rental car and we drive back up to Scarborough to our family home and we sort of hide out there until it's all over. We did the latter. So we jumped in a car, we went there. I didn't have any of my podcasting gear with me. I just had my laptop and we had Wi-Fi at the farm. And what I decided to do, it was on the 20th of March, so 3 days before Boris announced the lockdown. I thought, right, well, what I'm going to do is if I can't do the work from Spain, I'm just going to do it here. And I'm very fortunate that Boostly is 100% virtual. And so I announced that I was going to go live every night on Facebook. And I naively thought that this was going to be over in a few weeks. And obviously, we're still now coming into December nearly, and we're still not over it. So I thought, right, every night I'm going to go live on Facebook. I'm going to do it at 8 p.m. and I'm just going to give tactics and advice and just sort of help, because I could just, those weeks in March, I don't know if anybody you can remember how you felt. It was scary as shit. Not only the most worrying thing for me is that governments didn't know what to do. They're literally panicking and doing all the things. And like, these are the people who run our country. So I just thought, with hospitality doing all of this and Airbnb doing all things, all I can literally do is every night for free on my Facebook, I'll go on and I'll just go live until this is over. And all I was doing is I was, number one, giving tactics and tips, marketing tactics and tips on how you can get key workers. So we were sort of brainstorming live on my Facebook going, right, well, this is what you can do. Number one, contact your local hospital trust. And we were just picking information, bits that we were getting every day. I was seeing what other people were doing. And to be fair, it was the people from the service accommodation world that were acting first, like David Dyack, Matt Ward of Sorted Stay. They brought in 30 grand's worth of direct bookings from hospitality trust people by simply reaching out to hospital trusts and just saying, we have properties, we need to fill them. You know, they obviously had to pivot their rates and their prices, but they were doing what needed to be done. And all I was doing every night was coming on and saying, right, well, this is how you get in front of these people. Facebook groups, Gumtree, this is what you should do. You should contact everybody who stayed with you in the past who is technically a key worker and find out if they need to travel for work. And then I reached out to experts, and we brought experts on the podcast, and that went for 44 nights. And after those 44 nights, it got to the end of May, start of June, and I was just like, I got to stop. You know, I literally couldn't think of any other experts to do. My brain was frazzled. And then as well at the start of June, we had to figure out how to get back to Spain, because we had left our whole life. Our car was in the Alicante airport for like 4 months in the end. So I had to stop and I had to start to think about, of our family and whatnot. But by the end of it, because we had 200 people tuning in every night, and then we had loads of people watching back on the replay, my name just started to get associated with the direct booking guy. And again, I was just sharing these tips on how to do it. And the only to finish off this very long answer to this very short question is that the cool thing about the lockdown right now, of where we are recording this on the 10th of November, and anybody in England, you've got this 4-week lockdown, right? Is that we've got a playbook to go by. Is that unlike March, where we didn't know what we were doing, you can simply just go back to March and go, right, I've got these properties, they need to be filled, and we've got a little bit more hope because business guests can still travel. You can still travel for work. So it's a case of doing the same tactics and tips, tapping into that network, tapping into Facebook groups, putting it out there that you can do it. And again, this is what people are doing, and they have pivoted their business. They have they have done so well in so many different ways. And for the first time in the 4 years of me doing this, people are marketing their businesses like never before, because they've realized that they cannot just rely on a third party to bring in their bookings. They have to take responsibility. which is phenomenal. For me, I've been talking about this nonstop for 4 years, to finally see it in action, and I see it every single day from members of the Boostly Academy, yourself, content creator, website. I see it in the hospitality community Facebook group. I see it in the SA groups that I'm part of. More and more people now are talking about direct booking, because my goal in all of this is that I want to get the OTAs to reduce their commission costs. I want it to knock down from 15, 14, 20%, whatever it is, down to 10%. I think that would be more manageable. And I also want them to treat us more like the partners that they say they are. I want them to give us more data. And the only way that we're going to do that, and I made this decision back in 2016, is that I could just stand there on my Facebook page, like on the top of my plinth, just shouting it to the rooftops. It will never work because it's just me. But if I get 1 million hosts, if I can help 1 million hosts, and those 1 million hosts then explain to all of their guests the benefits of booking direct, whether that's on their website, on their social media, talking to guests on arrival, on departure, in emails, or all of it, then we can spread the word and we can start to increase our direct booking. So then the OTAs will look at their reports and go, hang on a second, they're booking less and less and less with us, and they're going direct to the property. What are we going to do about it? And if I can force that conversation to happen in the next, and I've set a very ambitious 25-year goal to help 1 million people, then I'm 4 years in, so I've got 21 years to go. Then that's why I'm doing it. So right now it's fast forwarded like massively, because so many people now are coming to Boostly, so many people are sort of coming to my world, which is awesome, all because of going live for 44 days every night on Facebook.
That's brilliant. And just, I was in awe of your long answer there, because it definitely needed to be, because it's just been an absolute whirlwind, hasn't it, all of this year, and it's been up and down. And I think to show that you went live every day, even though you kind of didn't know what was happening, like you said, the government were just sort of taking it day by day, and we were always, clinging on to sort of 4:30 or 5 o'clock, saying, what's Boris going to say tonight? And things that could affect us as hospitality owners and business owners as well. So for you to go live every day not just shows that you also care about what you are saying, putting that into practice and to help others, but also that shows consistency. And I think that goes a long way in whatever you do, doesn't it, in life, and especially if you want a successful business. Like you said earlier, you can't just rely on one thing. You were getting hospitality owners where 95% of their bookings were from an OTA, for example, like Airbnb. So it's about thinking outside the box, adapting to change. And at the time, it's funny, you said you were sort of going to Alicante. I was in LA at the time because my wife's from there, and we were there. We were in New York first, and then we went over to LA. And then it was about the 11th of March. And luckily, we always get sort of a lot of direct bookings. I think that has been knowing your area. And I'm also very sort of salesy in that sense, that I like to convert them to direct. I feel a bit like, I've got to pay a service fee on the OTA. So I kind of like that. But when it all hit, I think it just hit like any business owner. And it was like, cancellation after cancellation after cancellation, I think on the 11th or 12th of March, because I remember it in LA, and I think it was my nephew's birthday, and I was like, shit hitting the fan, what the hell do we do? So I knew I had to get home, similar to you, and do something about it. And I think that your lives, as well as just Facebook groups, your hospitality Facebook group, really helped, because you probably got a lot of service accommodation operators and other hospitality owners that did rely on mostly leisure guests and are in those sort of areas where there is seasonality, going, Mark, I've just had everyone cancel, because everyone's cancelling even for August, even though it's March, because no one knows how long it's going to go on for, or people are starting to lose their jobs. And I don't think furlough come into play, or we didn't know what that meant at the time. So everyone was on panic mode. So it's I think a lot of hospitality owners have definitely learned a lot this year, and especially helped by people like yourselves. Have you found now, even though we're on the second lockdown now here in the UK at the moment, I know you're in Spain, and we've got a lot of listeners as well from the US and Canada, so slightly different rules, but have you found that this lockdown, because it was kind of sudden again, has it been a little bit easier? Have you had a lot of messages and emails again saying, Mark, panic stations, can you help me? Or a little bit calmer?
Well, I think like the misconception in what I teach, people have said that even though it's a direct booking, they can't cancel, which isn't true. Everybody can cancel, as you know, even if it's a direct booking. Yeah. But the power of a direct booking is you've got the choice. So you can call up that guest, you can message that guest, because unlike with Airbnb, they can do the Thanos click and they can literally get rid of all your income. With a direct booking, it's still in your power. So you can contact them and go, listen, Sarah, I totally understand, you know, you can't come and stay with us in April because of the lockdown. But, you know, if you're up for it and if you're open to it, well, let's change your date to October or November. You can change it at any time. We'll have a you know, we'll have a very flexible change policy, and that's what we were talking about instantly. So we went in on day one. It was the 23rd, the day after Boris did his announcement, and that's the message that we were spreading: the change, not cancel. I was very fortunate to have Jessica Lorimer, sales coach, come onto my podcast, and we were talking about retention, because she obviously trained in retention, and it was one of the first things that we spoke about, the change, not cancel. And it was the sort of the mantra, the motto that we spread everywhere, and it worked massively for direct bookings, the change, not cancel, because, you know, at the end of the day, we fall into a trap in hospitality. When a booking comes in, you can just look at it as a number or a profit or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're in the most sociable industry, I believe, because you're getting strangers come and stay in your house or the property that you manage. And we're very fortunate in that way, because we can have so many cool conversations. You know, it's like when you contact somebody to switch them from an OTA booking to a direct, it's because of a phone call. And the power of a phone call was massive. And on that phone call, I was just saying to people, listen, just be honest, you know, just ditch the ego and just say, listen, if you really need this money, I will refund you, no problem, 100%. If you are desperate for this money, I will give it back to you. I have no qualm in that. But if you don't need it, then I would really appreciate if you could just change it for a date in the future. Because our business, we are losing money at the moment, and we don't know if at the end of it we're going to be able to survive. So your money and your customer is going to be helped massively. And again, just by ditching the ego, having an honest conversation with them, showing a little bit of, you know,
that's what I was going to say, just being honest, showing a little bit of authenticity and saying, look, we're just a sort of a family-run business, or we're just a small business. Can you just help us out if you can? You know, just move it. You don't need to cancel.
And that worked. And
yeah,
I mean, our family business, we had cancellation after cancellation, but we also changed a lot. We also moved a lot of dates, and we then had to remove them. You know, it's just something that had to be done, but it was taken like a sort of step back. And just, I think the problem with a lot of people is that they get into this and they realize that, you know, maybe property managers or whatever, they think the property people or whatever you want to do, and then they get into it and they try and automate their whole life, their whole business. But the problem with that is that you lose that human touch. And if this has shown one thing, is that the power of having that human touch is everything. Being able to reach out and to communicate with people, being able to chat to people, being able to just text or whatever is going back to old school methods, which is working massively. So to answer your question, yes and no. So there was a ton of cancellations, but they were leisure cancellations. What's happening is that people are pivoting again and going back to the business bookings, because they can still come in, the key workers can still come in. So again, it's just sort of going, and for a lot of people, they are having to do things maybe they're not used to before, the whole business thing, but there's amazing training on it. And, you know, Boostly Academy members, I've got Greg Dorban, who came in and did some contractor training, which was fantastic, which was only a couple of weeks ago, and that's really helping. We're discovering right now, Gumtree is really working for contractor bookings, like Wales. And this is the hard thing for myself, because I do the training and I do these podcasts and I do all this advice, is that this time last year, I could just give generic advice and everybody in the Northern Hemisphere could use it. Southern Hemisphere, not so much, because it's their coming into their summer now, where I was talking about winter, shoulder season. So I had to maybe pivot sometimes for that. But right now, as you said, Wales is different to Scotland, is different to England. And when the whole tier thing was going on, it was insane. And I live in Spain, and in Spain, we have lockdowns in our county, in our area. I mean, I can still walk around. I just have to wear a mask all the time, the Boostly mask. Got to wear a mask at all times. And, you know, and then it's different to what's in Italy, in America. Christ, God knows what they're doing in America. Everybody's having a great time. Like it's never happened. And then you've got Canada, and again, you've got different states in all these areas. Bali, you know, I've got a lot of friends in Bali, and they're not allowed anybody in or out. And in Australia, again, it's so different everywhere. So, you know, the advice you give, and the generic advice that I can give to everybody is that, number one, make sure that your systems are in place. You've got a website, you've got a PMS, you've got your email list, and you've got your social media. And like you said, consistency is everything. And it was the one big advice that I was giving out during lockdown was don't go dark, don't disappear. Post on Facebook, post on Instagram. Use this as a time to start doing Instagram stories or Facebook stories and sort of document your day. Because those that stayed top of mind when everybody else was going dark. And this is a crazy thing, is that Booking.com and Expedia shut off all advertising. So I know companies that have, and this is small independent businesses in the UK, that have capitalized on Booking.com and Airbnb, not advertising on Google in their area, and they've shot to the top with really effective Google ads. And this is how they got in their key worker bookings. And this is how now, because they're top of mind, because they've got all this amazing karma built up on Facebook, and they've grown their brand and whatnot, and they've got amazing relationships with business. Lockdown 2 comes along, they're not affected at all, because they've already built up these relationships and whatnot. And so a long way around of answering your question. Again, I apologize.
No, don't.
We've got this playbook. We've got this playbook now that even if it happens again in February or March, hopefully it doesn't, but even if it does, we have this playbook. Hospitality doesn't have to be, accommodation doesn't have to be as affected as much as pubs are now. Like people were sorry for hospitality, people were sorry for our industry, but they didn't realize that we could take on business and key worker guests, and now business guests. We can get by this, and which is why more and more people, I can see them all the time signing up to the email list, coming into the hospitality community. They're downloading the podcast, they're subscribing to the YouTube, and they're joining the website business, getting a website or content creator or my private training group. More and more people are coming in because they're finally going, listen, I cannot rely on one source of income. I cannot just put all my eggs in this basket. Cannot build my house on that land. I got to do something. I got to become multi-channel. And I'm very fortunate that I've just been the guy who's just been banging on about this for the last 4 years. And now I've done that. I've built up all of this clout that people are now going, come to Mark, which is awesome, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And I hear you sort of say the word quite a lot about sort of workcation. Is that what you say quite often? I hear it sort of staycations and workcations. Is there like a difference between sort of a workcation and a staycation, and how that can help sort of hospitality owners, service accommodation, etc.? Yeah.
So, and I like how it's come up on the screen. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Workcation. So basically, it's just a play on words: staycation, workcation. I was even calling it in Australia statecation because out of lockdown, they couldn't leave their state. But workcation is a new trend, and it's one that everybody, doesn't matter when you listen to this, whether you're listening to this in November, December, or even 2021, it's a trend you have to get ready for. And if anybody has ever listened to anything on Naval Ravikant and Tim Ferriss, the podcast, then you will know what I'm talking about right now, is that we're coming into an age and a time in our human existence where this 9 to 5 in an office is slowly edging away. Google have still got a massive travel ban. Google have still got where people are remote. Twitter are now 100% remote. Dropbox are 100% remote. And these are some of the biggest companies in the world. Booking.com are 100% remote. They are all working from home. Now, what does that tell you? Is that they have got people that are not having to go into an office to work. this trend, this workcation trend, really kickstarted in America back in May and June. Again, all the rules and regulations that are in place in our country, you can look in America and it's just literally, it's mental. County, state, it varies, you know, and I love America. Like your wife's from America, you've been to America. I've been to every state, you know, I almost settled down in Long Beach. I love that place, but it is craziest place I've ever been to. It's a world in itself. But they kickstart a lot of trends. And obviously Airbnb is out of San Francisco, which is why so many hosts adore Airbnb, or they did. Now, it's a very long round again, and another little tangent about why I'm going to explain about this is because you've now got people that instead of being in a city, in an apartment, and not being able to go into their office, they're realizing that they don't have to stay in their house. They don't have to look at the same four walls. What they will do is they will go on a workcation. And whether that is a solo person or whether that is somebody who's got a family, what the trends and what the surveys and the stats are showing that's come out of Skift, and even Airbnb have produced this report, is that more and more people, this is the crazy stat, and again, the founder of Airbnb mentioned this on the How I Built This podcast, is that in August 2020, they had more business travelers than they had in August 2019, which is insane if you think about it, right? Because what's happening is that people are flicking that little filter on Airbnb. Are you traveling for leisure or business? They're putting business down because they're putting it on a business expense. And then what they're doing is that they're going and working from a location. Okay, so that's workcation, and it's getting so important that Airbnb are changing up their filters right now to include the speed of the Wi-Fi, which is really so. If you want my top tip, the aha moment that you're going to take away from this podcast, whether it's a single one or it's a part two or whatever, is that on your listing on Airbnb right now, go into the title and amend it. And if you've got epic Wi-Fi, when I mean epic Wi-Fi, it's anything more than 100 megabyte speed per second download and upload, mention it in the title. Because if you're trying to stand out on a very stagnated or crowded listing site, an Airbnb, you have the ability to do this more than any other OTA out there, is that you can amend the title. Put it in the title because you will stand out. And when they add the filter in, you can put it in, and make sure you keep checking back on the amenities, because again, if you've got super fast Wi-Fi, mention it and have it as a tick box. Also as well, have a look at your amenities right now, because you may be able to add in workspace. Because think about how a guest would book. They're going through the filters and going, right, I need air conditioning, I need a washer, I need a kitchenette. Workspace, yes, I need workspace, I need Wi-Fi. And again, if nobody else has ticked workspace, put it in. And all you need to do in one of your units or your property or your wherever is that you just go to IKEA and get a lack table or whatever, or just get some stationery, or even just get a cheap printer from Facebook Marketplace and put it in. And then you've got a workspace in there, make room for it. And then you've got a new USP. And it's so simple to be done. But when you are on there, and when you're on your website, and when you're on your social media, take a picture of it, talk about it, promote it, because people are looking for places to escape. And even if you are appealing to a family, now think about it. If you've got a guest or a potential guest, and just think about your customer avatar, your ideal target client for this right now. They're in an apartment in Manchester city centre, and they don't have to go into the office. And they've got a 2 or a 3-year-old, and I'm a parent of a 2-year-old. I know how annoying these little shits are.
I'm a parent of a 3-year-old, so I know.
Yeah, there you go. So I've got a 2, a 5, and a 7-year-old. The 2-year-old, literally, you could pull your hair out. But it's a beautiful little boy, but again, little shit. But anyway, if I'm trying to get work, I'm in an office, right? I'm nowhere near him. If I was trying to get work done, and he's there, he's like, doing 2-year-old stuff, I couldn't focus. But if I see a place that pops up on my social media feed or in a group or a recommendation or wherever saying, listen, we've got a workcation, it's a 3-bed property, you can stay for a month or whatever you need, it's got availability for it, it can be a workcation, as you call it, and it's a place where the family can come as well, then that's a business trip, that's a work trip. You know, you can do that. And again, maybe not right now in lockdown, however woolly a lockdown that you may think it is. But if you maybe can't do it now, well, hopefully in December you can do January, February, March. And that's what people are doing in America. And it is proven so successful. This is why Airbnb started a brand new search on their algorithm for month stays because of this.
Yeah.
People were traveling for work. And this is what workcation is. And again, I'm talking about this now because it's a fast growing trend. And if you take advantage now, so if you're one of the people who listen to this when it first comes available, you have got the ability to take advantage of it right now. And the most simplest thing that you can do right now, what I talk about, where it's take action straight away, that 10%, take one thing, go onto your listing sites on Airbnb and just put in the Wi-Fi speed. If it's good, if it's crap, if it's 10 megabyte, don't talk about it because that's crap. You've got to have a good Wi-Fi, fiber optic, whatever you want to call it. Put it on there and put on as well that you've got Netflix. Go and get Disney. Disney, you pay once and you can add multiple units to it. Go get Disney and talk about it. If you get these things and you get these cool things in, then make sure you talk about it. Go onto your social media, put a post up. Go onto your website and put it on your homepage of your website. The amount of websites that I see that aren't Boostly websites, and on the homepage, they don't talk about any benefits of booking direct. It literally blows my mind. How are we going to get guests to book direct and know to contact us directly if we don't talk about the better incentives of booking direct, the reasons why to book direct? So put this on the homepage of your website where people are coming to. Put it on your Facebook, put it on your Instagram stories, your LinkedIn, your Tickety Talk, whatever you're using, put it on there. And the more you talk about it, put it into groups. The more you talk about it, then people will realize that that's what they can do. And that's how you get those workcation bookings.
Brilliant. I love that. That's some great tips there, listeners. So if you're listening, workcation, get on it, get on your channel managers and your Airbnb now. And just those little things, like you say, like we also, sometimes you'll see a lot of like, Netflix in the title because that was kind of a thing. And now, like you and I, we've got, little ones and Disney Plus for sort of the same price, if not cheaper. You can have that, and that's been sort of a saving grace for a lot of families in order just to get a couple of hours work done while they put a Disney movie on, because Disney are way ahead. They own those rights to those films and they're all on there. So if you want it, you can get that. And those little tips and those little golden nuggets are so helpful for people, because like you say, some people do get sort of in a rut or stuck in their own ways. Like you said back at the start of this of this recording, you were saying about you had sort of North Yorkshire and sort of Whitby area, and they've probably been doing it for donkey's years, and they're just so stuck in their ways, but not in their own fault. That's just what they're used to.
But if you think about it, they when I first started, there's so many people in that room that had ran their guest house of their business for 10 plus years. If you think about it, Facebook didn't really get started properly in the UK 2007. So they've had their business longer than Facebook's actually ever been around. So for a lot of people, when I came in and started talking about these things, it was so new. And it was exactly why my parents asked us to come back into the business, is that they didn't want to figure it out themselves. They wanted somebody that they could just pop in. And I was there, and it was the start of everything. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it was my coaching background that meant I knew that I could teach it and coach it and explain it, and I could put it into words that was easy to understand. But the main frustration to me was that there was nobody doing it online. And if anybody was doing it, any agencies were doing it, they were charging stupid amount, like £12,000 a year plus for it. And again, these weren't people that had done it, hadn't been there, hadn't changed beds, hadn't known what it was like to get like a 1-star review on TripAdvisor or whatever. They hadn't experienced it. Or again, the people that there was like 1 or 2 coaches, and the information was out of date and overpriced and crap. And I was like, well, fuck it. If no one else is doing it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to step up and I'm going to do it. And I honestly thought it was going to be Scarborough and Whitby. I honestly thought I was going to just, my niche was going to be Scarborough and Whitby. But for whatever reason, it's grown, and it's grown to like worldwide, which is crazy. We've got clients in Costa Rica that tune in regularly, which is amazing. We've got clients in, Tasmania. We've got far east of Sydney on the eastern coast, and you know, we've got people down in Mexico and California and Canada and all over Europe, all over like the UK and Ireland, and it's insane. But that's the beauty of where we are right now in 2020, is that Zoom has just made it accessible to all. Facebook is everywhere. It's on every laptop, phone, tablet. You got the portals now, so it's everywhere. You know, there's the Oculus glasses, and it just giving everybody a platform to talk to everybody for free.
Yeah.
Whatever your feelings are of Facebook, whatever it may be, it's given business owners a chance for free to promote their business, build a platform, and you know, that's what I've done. Most of my new business leads come via Facebook, whether it's a recommendation in a group, or they see something like this, or they come across my Facebook page and just go from there. So yeah, it's utilize it. So many people are scared of it, but utilize it. And if you need advice on it, then just come and find me at Boostly and you'll be able to find out more.
Yeah, brilliant. Don't be afraid. It's like getting out your comfort zone, isn't it? And we've all had to do that this year. I think that's taught us, just as, you know, entrepreneurs and business owners, and the ones that didn't want to adapt to change and pivot a bit are the ones that are going to lose ultimately at the end of the day. I think that's, as a business owner, those probably ones why your place has stayed in business and it's done so well, is because, you know, your parents were open to change and adapting. They realised that they had to, and that you were fortunate enough there to be able to help them. And then you've been taught sort of others as well, but you've probably learned a lot yourself. And over the years, as sort of social media has grown, and now everything's virtual, isn't it? You know, so that's definitely great. And workcation, so get on that, people. Workcations, that's for sure, because we're all doing that now. So that's for sure. So just tell us a little bit about Boostly before we finish, Mark. Just tell people about how they can get hold of you on social media, or if they do want sort of an upgrade on their website, or just to learn more as well about how to grow their business and not rely so much on the OTAs.
So the best place to go to get started is boostly.co.uk. So boostly.co.uk. On there is a little link that you can click, and I will send you 5 videos on how to get started in direct bookings. So I break down 5 really key places to get started, and so many people have seen great success in just those 5 videos. So we talk about Google Ads, we talk about bid on brand, we talk about email marketing, we talk about contractor bookings. So go in there and check them out. That's the best place to start.
And that's boostly.co.uk, Mark.
Yeah, boostly.co.uk. Go on there. It's the first thing that pops up. You'll see a picture on there. You can go and check that out. If from there, if you want to check out on the social medias, you want to come and say hi, Instagram is where I spend my time. So Instagram is at Boostly UK. I do love that channel. I don't have any other apps on my phone apart from Instagram, because I do like to create little daily videos on there.
You do like vlogs, right, Mark? You do like vlogs on your...
Yeah, so I'm 3 days. So basically, when I started Boostly in 2017, we went traveling around Asia and India. So we went to Thailand, Cambodia, Bali, and India. And my wife created a little travel blog called Two Traveling Tots. And when we were doing it, I started to do little videos for Two Traveling Tots, and the videos are still on YouTube. It's awesome. We were just watching them at the weekend on the projector, which was awesome. When we got back, I kept on doing the daily vlogs, but for Boostly, and I just kept on doing them. And I realized last week that I'm up to episode 1,000 in 3 days' time. So I've been doing these daily vlogs for so many years now, and it's Monday to Friday. So basically all I do is on Instagram, you got the little stories, and when you create a story, it saves it to your phone. So at the end of the day, I take the videos that are on the camera roll. I use an app called Quick, Quik. It's a free app from GoPro. You load them in there and it turns it into a little movie for you, a 1-minute movie, which is awesome. It adds music and whatnot. And then every day I was uploading them to just Facebook and just calling them a daily vlog. Now over time, I've outsourced them, and now somebody from my virtual team, they upload it for me. I just send it to them in Google Photos. But we've got to a point where I'm free away from 1,000. And you talked about consistently and showing up every day And that's just one little thing. It gets maybe 1 or 2 likes, gets a couple hundred people view it every day. But every time I do, it's like people are joining in the journey with me. And from a selfish point of view, just like we were doing in the weekend, we're on the YouTube channel and watching back our travel vlogs. In 5 or 10 years or 15 or 20 years time, when I'm hopefully at that goal, I can watch back on these daily videos in 2030, whatever year's time, and just sort of be able to remember it and show it to the boys, show it to Alfie, show it to Charlie, show it to Frankie, and just say, this is what we were doing when you were like 2 and 5 and 7, and it's awesome, you know, and that is it, and that's why I use Instagram.
It's great, and just creating memories, like you say, just something to look back on, and your journey. And that obviously at that age they won't remember things that you know you've brought them or took them along to, or having to deal stuck in the airport and then having to go back and you know, be locked down in North Yorkshire and everything. So that's just cool, isn't it? Just like you say, for your perspective, just to have something to look back on and your journey as well. Because I think we all forget, don't we, as entrepreneurs, how hard it is, and the slog, and sometimes, you know, the ups and downs of life and business, and the stresses and the background stuff that sometimes we just get on with it and we don't actually think about it. So it's just sort of
It's been one of the best things that I did. It's been the best thing that I've done, and I will continue to do so. And I recommend everybody do it. Doesn't matter whether you're starting out or whether you're 2 or 3 years into your business. Is document. Gary Vee talks about this all the time. Document over create, and it's one of the simplest things to do. You just pick up your phone and you hit the record button, and it's done. And you just post it. You don't even worry about it. You just share your day, share your journey, and it's awesome, because there will be people who can relate, who can follow, and if they stick around and follow you for years, then they will get to feel like they know you. And whether they're customers or future customers, they will remember it, to the point of where when they come to stay with you, and if they've been following your social media for a while, when you first meet them in real life, and they come to stay at one of your properties, I've had this conversation with so many people. It's like, we feel like we already know you. We feel like we already know your family because we've been following the Facebook page or whatever. And that is how you build superfans. That is how you build an online brand. That is how you achieve so much of what you need to achieve, to where you don't actually have to market your business. You've got people that are doing it for you.
Yeah. Brilliant. And just to sort of wrap up, Mark, I'll put all the details in the show notes as well of how you can get in touch with Mark and check out his website as well, boostly.co.uk. There's loads of things and loads of tools on there as well. And join up to the Hospitality Community Facebook page as well, because you'll get so many tips and tricks, and just also support. I think that's the biggest thing this year. If you're around the world and you normally just list on Airbnb, or you've got one, or you've got 40, and you manage them for other investors, it's just bringing people together. So definitely join up to that, people. But I always ask sort of guests, Mark, just finishing off, and we've had loads of key things that you've put in there, loads of things that I love to hear as well, that some things I did know and didn't know. So I'm sure a lot of listeners will definitely take it in. But as this is sort of what's key with Sarah G, I always ask sort of, what's one key message you want to give listeners, or what you think they're going to get from this episode, whether it be a 2-part or a 1-parter, but what's the one key message you think people should be able to take away from you, or key advice, do you think?
I've already said this, and I'll repeat it just in case they missed it the first time around, is that pick out one thing from this interview, this nearly 2-hour interview, and what I want for you to do is pick one thing and action it. So whether that's buying one of the books that I recommended, or whether it's going to amend your title on Airbnb, or just doing one thing, just go and do it. Whether it's going onto the Boostly website and getting those 5 videos, just do it straight away. Don't even think about it. If you're walking your dog, flip open Google on your phone or whatever, open up the Airbnb app on your phone, or if you're watching this and you buy your computer, just do it. Whatever you do, don't procrastinate. Don't think I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week, because you'll never will. Simple, never will. Just do it now, whatever that's going to be. And if not, if you're just going to go, I'm just going to ignore that guy with a weird accent, then thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in.
Oh, that's brilliant. No, I bet a lot of people will do, like you've put so many sort of key tips and tricks and hacks in there, Mark. So thank you ever so much for all that advice. And I'm sure someone will take at least one thing away. I've taken loads, so I'm sure loads of people will take loads. So thank you ever so much for your time. And thank you everyone for listening. And Mark, is there anything you want to finish on, or that is pretty much it for the listeners?
Just come and say hi on Instagram. If you are tuning in, just send me a message and say you came from the podcast. I always like to know where people discover me. So please do come and say hi and say it was from Sarah's podcast. But thanks for having me on. Like I say, I binged season 1, and I do enjoy it. You've got an amazing thing here. So please do keep it up, because it's I know it's well, I like listening to it, and I know others do as well.
Oh, thanks, Mark. No, I appreciate that. Well, thank you ever so much for being on. So I really appreciate that. Thank you ever so much. And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of What's Key with Sarah G. And stay tuned again for next week. We'll have another great episode for you. And please don't forget to review, rate and subscribe. And please follow Mark Simpson as well on Boostly or boostly.co.uk. You can get him on Instagram as well. But all the details will be in the show notes as well, where you can find Mark. And thank you ever so much, Mark. Until the next time.